Hey, can everybody hear me? Hang on a second here. Okay. Well, today I'm going to talk about the BTT002 and explain how to load the firmware. So I'm going to toggle through some stuff in just a second here, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to plug it in first to show you what's going on. So this is already directly connected to my computer, the USB. So I'm going to open up what's known as Interface. I just got to find it here. Here we go. Sorry about that movement. So I'm going to connect to it. And one of the things I want to do is just check the status of the end stops. And as you can see, all the end stops say triggered. That's because all the end stops are actually disconnected. And I'll show you what I mean in 2 seconds. Right over here, none of the end stops are connected. That's why you're seeing that. That's kind of going to be a trick for us to tell if the actual printer firmware has updated. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go over to VS Code after I show you how to hook up the LCD. Now they say to use the LCD 2004, but I don't have that one. So I have a close proximity that seems to work. And this is a G-Tech one. I'm sure with your printers it might help. So I'm going to actually double check over in the web browser what the actual settings are. So as you can see over in the browser here, we have EXP1 and EXP2. On the back of the LED, we have the same thing. So I'm going to connect those the same way. So right now I'm connected to EXP1. So I'm going to connect to EXP1. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the notch connector over here. And then run it into the LCD as well. Like so. So the other thing that I need to do is actually load the firmware, and I have a 128 megabit SD card inside this adapter. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to plug it into the computer. So I already have it formatted. So what I'm going to do, it's formatted as FAT32. So I'm going to go directly over to VS Code, and I'm actually going to load the most current project that I have for this. So in VS Code, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Explorer, Open Folder, then I'm going to go to my downloads, and I have a Marlin and another Marlin that I have to go into, then Select Folder. Once I'm in Select Folder, in order to set this up, apparently I have an old version already set up. So what I'm going to do is actually show you the changes that I made and why I made them. So first, I usually go to source core boards.h, and then I search on the board type. In this case, it's this one right here, which is board underscore BTT underscore BTT002 V1. So I'm going to copy that. Then I'm going to go over to my configuration.h, and I would search on motherboard, but I've already changed it. Before this, it was actually the ramps. Let me see if I can back it out so you can see. Well, I can't back it out, but it's actually the ramps that would be here. So I pasted over that the board type, and then I changed the serial port to -1. Now, the other thing you need to consider with this is the end stops so that we can see what's going on. So I'm going to go over to end stops, and these are the end stop settings. So down here, right now, we can invert the actual type of end stop so that instead of saying that it's triggered, that it's open. So I'm going to change the Y axis for Y minimum and change this to true, so it'll flip the logic. And the last thing I want to do is actually enable this particular LCD. It's not the one that you normally use, and it may not work in your case because I went through 3 or 4 of them to find one that works. So I'm going to search on rep underscore discount, and it's the second one that I'm looking for. So let me click down again. So it's the rep discount full graphics smart controller. So I'm going to remove the comment. Keep in mind, this step probably will not be the same for you. And then finally, for platform.io.ini, I've already changed this, but it was originally the Mega 2560. And the way you find that is just doing a search on BTT002, and that brings you to the environment. So you copy that and then paste it up here for your default environment. So I'm going to compile this real quick. This may take upwards of 2 minutes, so let's see what we have for some questions here. Hey, Derek. Is the video still frozen? Hang on, I gotta look around. I'm actually gonna change it to the board for a second. Yeah, my hand is frozen. Okay. That's awesome. Any better? Worse? Okay, you can see the video? Or not? Hang on, let me fix the video. Okay. I was able to fix the video. For some reason, I'm having issues where it's freezing up on me. I'm still working out the bugs on that. It may be that I made it a little bit too complex, but I'm going to go back to VS Code to see what's going on. And it's still compiling. So does anybody have any questions while it's compiling? Yeah, I've been screwing around with VS Code trying to get it to work right. And I made several different scenes, so I may have caused some confusion with it. Hopefully I'll be able to work that out over the next couple of live streams. Let me see if what it actually looks like for you guys on my side. Unfortunately, it doesn't give me a lot of stats on what I'm doing that I can see easily, so. But it looks like the actual compile just finished. So to load this on the actual drive, what I'm going to do is go over to .pio, then build, then Bigtree Tech. And I'm going to right click and open in Explorer. You may not be able to see this part Let me see if I can bring it up. So maybe you see it now. So now I'm going to go into the subfolder, and inside the subfolder I'm going to right click and I'm going to send to my SD drive. So to check on it, you can go over to the firmware and see it's there. So it's firmware.bin in lowercase. This is going to be different from other tutorials where it capitalizes it, but we're going to remove this from the computer in a moment and then see what's going on. But let me flip back to over here so you can see what I'm about to do. So I'm going to power down the system for a moment. I'm then going to connect the USB, or excuse me, the SD card to a slot on the side here. And once that's connected, I'm going to put it back down, and then I'm going to plug in the USB power again, and hopefully the screen will come up and actually work. So it does say Marlin. It's very faded. It may be a power supply issue. So I'm going to check that by taking this out for a moment. And I'm going to move this over. I'm actually going to apply power to it. Notice how I marked red for voltage. This is where direct power will come in. And let me see if I can tighten this down real quick. And then I'll do the other one. So now we actually have power on it. So I'm going to actually plug this in. I just got to find the plug. Remember not to touch your board once it's been plugged in. So now the board's energized. And I'm going to plug in this over here. So now it seems to be a little bit better on the LED. Did the screen go out again? It looks like it did. Hang on a second. It was working perfectly the other day. Let me put this in studio mode for a second. Lovely. There we go. Can you see now that it's powered up? So let me tilt this so you can actually see what's going on. It's a little bit faded with the lighting that I have going on. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to drop into Pronterface. As soon as I find it, there we go. And we're going to reconnect to it. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type M119 again. And as you can see, the actual Y minimum is now triggered. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, they might be in the same port for the camera. That's probably why it's freezing. I can only imagine how frustrating it is to watch on your side. So Jessica, does that answer your question on how to load the firmware? Or was it frozen 90% of the time when I was showing it? The board can function with TMC UART, but it can also function without it. Yeah, Visual Studio is pretty good about not freezing. It's the wonderful camera. It might also be that I need to power down the system every once in a while. But for the UART, you can actually use either 2209s, or you could probably use, what is it, TMC 2130s that are SPI. But I believe you can use other steppers. I still haven't played with the board to try it out, but that's what they recommend. And that's only when you're doing sensorless homing, which means that it's watching for an overcurrent when it reaches the end of an axis. Depending upon what you're using for UART, there's two different settings. Let me bring up the VS Code environment. If you go into VS Code, and I click on, let me minimize some of this so it's out of the way. You click on Configuration Advanced, and search on Sensorless, I think it is. Okay. What they're talking about is sensorless homing with stall guard. So yeah. This would be what you actually enable to do sensorless homing. There's a couple of caveats. Obviously, with TMC 2209s, your range is from 0 to 255. And then for the TMC 2130s, the sensitivity is negative 64 to 63. So you can do that for X and Y rather easily. Now there's also a floating variable someplace in this program where you've got to search for it, because this might interfere with your sensitivity. So you can always search on that. I don't know where it's located. Well, they narrowed it down to 2 places, so that makes life easier. This originally was listed someplace else in the firmware. And you can also enable your Z-axis to do it now as well. I don't recommend it, but if you want to try it, go right ahead. So the TMC 2130s fried themselves? I know the TMC 2208s are great because they're super quiet. I still use endstops, so that's just the way I do it. I would probably go with the TMC 2208 and use endstops, Jessica. But that's just my preference. Sensorless homing can be fun to calibrate. Hey, make some. How's it going? So somebody was asking about how to do a configuration for an CoreXY on a GTR. So I thought I might show that real quick if you guys want to see what I'm doing. I'm not sure what board heat is. Do you mean head? Oh, need. Well, I'm not sure about the Pinda. I'm guessing that's a Z-axis stepper. Or excuse me, Z-axis end stop. But let me unplug this for a second. And I'm not going to unplug the configuration for the actual board right now, because we know how much fun the camera is. Yeah. Truth be told, my secret to the Z-axis is I use an end stop. A lot of people want to see the BLTouch. I did a lot of videos on that about 2 years ago on various boards, but then Marlin decided to change their implementation and things got really weird. So I've kind of stayed away from it for a while. I'm getting close to going back into trying it. That's why I avoid the BLTouch and 3D Touch. It has more to do with Marlin than the actual hardware. It works great in the 1.0 version of Marlin. It's horrible, or was horrible, in the 2.0. But that was around August of 2019, I think it stopped working. So, let me see if I can bring this board out without frying it. Here's the GTR board. Just gonna move this over. If you haven't figured it out, I have a little trick to keep things in place when I work on them. So I have to clean up a little to get it out of the way. But here's the GTR board for those that are interested in knowing about it. Somebody asked me how to program it. It's a similar process, except you're actually going to use the TF drive or SD card. So the trick to programming this is I'm going to have to show you at the Marlin website. So let me get over to that. So in the browser, if you go to Marlin, what you want to do is go to the GitHub. And inside the GitHub, there's an extras folder. So let me see if I can pull this down and actually open it. So it's going to take a second to download. Oh, let me check to see if it's does it say Visual Studio or does it say GitHub at the moment? Because I can actually see the image. That's why I'm just worried that you're not you're seeing it at a delay from when I'm seeing it. Because it is showing up and the actual live stream is correct. So I'm wondering. But now that it's downloaded, I'm actually going to transition over to a folder. And inside this folder, I just pulled down the actual current config. So I'm going to click on it, right click, and extract it. And inside here, there'll be an extras folder. I'll show you how to deal with that problem where you want to use like a CoreXY. But I'm going to have to go into VS Code for a moment. So I'm going to actually close my folder so I can map to that in a second. And then the folder's unzipped. So inside here, there's an extras folder. Oh, there should be. Excuse me. That's awesome. Here we go. Config examples. Pardon me. And there should be something about the CoreXY. So let's see if we can find it. Well, that's going to be fun. So, does anybody know which one the CoreXY falls under for products? Because obviously there's a lot of different printer types. That's why I'm easily confused. But I guess I'll pick this one for now. This is the MidgeBot. In order to set this up so you can actually work with it as a MidgeBot, you want to copy both your configuration files. And then you're going to go back to your folder. You're going to go to your regular default configuration, or you're going to copy it. In this case, in my downloads folder, I'll copy it into right here. So I actually have it closed right now, so I'm going to paste it right here and replace both of these. Now obviously my platform io.ini is probably going to be slightly off, but we'll deal with that in a second. So I'm going to go back to platform IO inside VS Code and show you what's going on. So inside VS Code, you're going to open the folder. You're going to go to your downloads folder or wherever you keep it. You're going to open that folder. Then you're going to open the other folder. Then select the folder. So in this case, if you go to the very top of the file, as soon as it loads, Platform IO Home loves to load while I'm doing this. But you can see that they have the name of the actual printer that they're working with in the file. But if you were to change this to a GTR board, all you would need to do is find your board. So you'd go over to Source, Core, Boards.h, search on GTR. Here's the actual GTR, so you'd copy it. Then close out of Boards.h, paste it over the previous configuration that was there. Make sure that this set is set to -1, and if you're using a TF touchscreen LCD, you'll be enabling this as well. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but it's in one of my videos for the tutorial. And then that would be most of the configuration, depending upon what you're doing for stepper drivers. Like I search on A4988 to get to where I can see the steppers. You can actually modify these, and I've done tutorials on how to modify those, so I'm not going to cover it. They're in my playlist for the GTR and probably every other playlist that I do. And then you would make your mods for whatever your motion is. They give you a default set of values. You may need to change these, but that's what they give you. And then you're going to change your platform io.ini. In this case, this is the last version that I had loaded because I didn't change the file. So I'm going to search on GTR. And this might search on several different things. But here's the default environment. You would copy it. Go back up here and paste it. And then you would build. That's all there is to changing the config for a specific printer and modding it to what you want it to be. Thanks, Mike. Or make some, pardon me. So anybody else have any other questions? I know the stream has got some issues that I have to work out with the USB drive. I might have to break out the USB into 2 different connections instead of using a USB hub, because this is horrible for me and you. So does anybody want to tell me what the best time of the day on the weekends is to do an actual video live stream? There is no good time of day? Yeah. It's 5 p.m. in Australia? Because it's 3:30 p.m. here, so that seems kind of early. I think we're on opposite sides of the planet. Oh, it's 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Australia. Yeah, it's actually 3:30 right here, Eastern Standard Time. You're saying 5 p.m. Australian time is a good time. The BLTouch, that I have to work out again. I've made several tutorials on it. The closest one would probably be my SKR 1.3 video. I did a video on how to do it. That was the last time it worked for me until they made changes in Marlin that made it difficult. But essentially, let me show you what it looks like. Wow, the build failed. That's awesome. So it's asking me about a runout sensor. I don't know why that is. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a clean and then do a rebuild. Sometimes the actual extra stuff from other builds or in this particular configuration are set and I don't know what's going on. So I'd have to actually go through this configuration and find it. This might be a good point for me to show you how to troubleshoot that problem, but at the moment, I think it may build this time. Who knows? But while that's going on, I'll show you how to do the BLTouch, at least how I remember it. You can search on BLTouch, and you can remove the comment here. Okay, there's something going on with a sensor in here. Looks like they got the filament runout pin set for something. I'll show you how to troubleshoot this kind of quick. You hold down the control button and click on it. It might show you a bunch of places where it is, or you can go here for the sanity check. There's something going on that the runout sensor for filament runout is enabled in this configuration. This is the one I copied in. I'll show you this real quick. So this is enabled by default. That might be the issue right there. So you can always do a rebuild to get around that. But back to the BLTouch. Once you enable the BLTouch, you're going to have to possibly enable your number of... Well, it failed again. you're going to have to enable the number of servos. So what you can do is do a search on num underscore serve, and you're probably going to have to remove this comment and change this to 1, and that'll take care of that issue. But let me see if I can figure out what's going on with the sanity issue still. Oh, it's probably because I changed the BLTouch. Let's try this again. But who knows, it might fail again because I'm making changes and then compiling. This is the delay at which time the servo will actually either move. So it's like 1/3 of a second. Might be better for me to open up a new version of this file because this is getting messy. Let's see. Let me disable these for a second just so I can see if this compiles right. Sometimes when you pull a config out of the examples folder, these are the things you'll be dealing with. I like to configure from scratch. But those two things being enabled should, in theory, help you. After you get those enabled, what you're going to do is you're probably going to go over to here, and you're going to find out what your end stop status is. And one of the tricks that you can use is your M119 command. That'll tell you what's going on with your end stops. Now, there might be other issues that occur inside your configuration file. So I'll pick a simple one here, hopefully. You go over to source. If you go over to source and then pins, you may have to set what your pin is. So in this case, I'm going to pick something simple like the SKR 1.4. Inside here, there might be a servo pin or there may be a BLTouch pin. They may have changed it. So let me see if it's BLTouch. Try end stop. Okay, this one's not the best example because I forgot that there's this folder, which is another pins that's related to this one. And this has your end stop pins in it. So, see if I can find them. Apparently I can't find them. So let's do end stop again. Awesome. They might be back in the other folder. So I'm going to search on X minimum. Okay, it's set for trinamic. This is what we went over yesterday, but here are some of the pins. It's going to depend on your actual configuration. These are obviously the X, min, and max. The Y is going to be slightly different. So you're going to have to go to each one of your board pinout diagrams and verify what you're working with. So I'll show you what I mean by that. You go over to the browser in here for the ZN stop. What they're saying is VCC ground. This is actually 5 volts ground. Then you have a sensor pin, then another sensor pin. One of these is probably tied to your servo setup, and the other one is tied to your end stop, being your BLTouch. That's going to vary between boards. Let me see if I can show you a different one on Big Tree Tech's website. So like for the SKR 1.4, you click on here, go to hardware, you got your pins. Inside here, the pin's going to be different. So I need to find it myself. It's going to be one of your Z minimums probably. So they have it set here, and then I think they have another set that they did in the SKR14 where it's actually different. Let me see if I can get to that one. Go to the pinout diagram for this one. They have it as servo and then your probe. So these are going to vary between configurations. And inside your configuration.h, there's also a special pin that you can set for that particular one, which is right here. But that's going to vary between setups. This is one of the reasons it's hard to cover talking about. Whoop, let me switch over so you can see what I'm talking about. Sorry about that. So over here is where you can set a default pin, but there's so many different configurations that you have to worry about. There's more information on BLTouch in here, which can be a little bit frustrating for people. If you search on BLTouch, there's even more settings. I personally recommend not touching these because this just makes it more confusing. And the logic that people say you need to use this, I think is untrue. But you can experiment on your own. Most of the actual BLTouches now are 3.1 and above that you can buy on the market. And stay away from clones because they might cause issues. But this also applies to 3D touches as well. So, sorry I got so tangential there. Your computer won't read your SD card when reformatted? Can you try a different SD card? Yeah, UK is kind of late. I was going to do this earlier in the morning, but I got the brilliant idea of trying to set up alerts in OBS and decided to use the new software from Streamlabs, which apparently is a lot of fun. Ralph, is that Germany? ATM? No, it's 6:30 ATM. Not sure which country that is for the time zone. Well, hopefully next time I do this live stream, it'll probably be on a Friday or Saturday. And I'll probably see if I can do it in the mornings. But right now I'm still stuck trying to figure out, obviously, how to use Streamlabs, which you can see is kind of messy. And I may have to upgrade the computer to something else because this one doesn't enjoy having to do all this work. So, nobody's got any more questions? I'm probably going to go run some errands and do some laundry. But thanks for taking the time and dropping by. And for those of you that tipped me in the chat, thank you very much. It's greatly appreciated. It goes mostly to the hardware that I use to make the tutorials for you. So I'll see if I can set this up for Friday or Saturday. I might set a regular schedule in Twitch. But right now I'm still configuring Twitch to do live streams. So that's part of the joy of doing this, is figuring out new ways to do things. But if you need to ask a question, there's always a general chat that I have for Discord that I've left in the description. And I want you all to take care, be safe, and have a nice day or weekend, depending upon where you are.